Hey everyone, this is the Mike Machine 1, and I'm gonna do 5-minute Marvel Stories Better version. This is the better version because when I first did my 5-minute Marvel Stories review, I only read the first 3 stories, and after reading the book in its entirety, my opinion on some of the stories that I covered in the first review changed, particularly in the first one. And I realized that some of the stories, which I just read the story and made jokes, some of them are so good that they don't need any jokes added. In fact, I think only 1 or 2 even bother any jokes at all. And I will make some jokes in this video to compensate the lack of jokes in a 5-part series. But essentially, I'm going to do a more summarized version of the stories, because some of them I actually think you should buy the book and read it for yourself, because it's worth reading yourself and not me reading it to you and spoiling all the fun. Now, like I said before, there are 12 stories. The first one, Keep Away from Kraven the Hunter, is the worst of the bunch. Written by Kenneth Shinik, it has the worst writing, the only one that breaks the Disney fourth wall with the Lion King. I would skip that one, so I'm not taking it down because I went through the trouble of reading the awful story to you. The X-Men one I actually think is good. My only main problem is the Alison Lundstrom. It's just she wrote a sentence that really didn't make sense grammatically, but the story itself is fine. I mean, it's just an adaptation. Mighty Thor, A Brother's Battle, I believe is like the best version. I mean, there are a couple that are good too, but I'd say if I had to pick my personal favorite, this is my favorite. Because it's about it really tells the origin of why Loki's so evil, why Thor has to battle him, and, you know, Loki's jealousy over Thor, you know, taking over Asgard from Odin, and how he wants to get rid of him so he can take over Asgard, and, you know, summoning him to the Isle of Silence against all these trolls. That's really cool. The only thing I would even make a joke about is his alter ego Donald Blake, but that was his alter ego in the comics. I think Donald Blake's a stupid name. I mean, just be named Thor. I don't know what type of name is Donald Blake. Thor is too cool to have a name like Donald Blake. But other than that, it's a really good story, really good artwork, and I'd say, you know, buy the book for no other reason just to check this story out. The next story, Iron Man's New Armor, I have to admit, written by Alison Lundstrom, is not so good. It's not as bad as the Spider-Man one, but it just seems like a Dr. Seuss novel. Essentially, it's about Iron Man rebuilding his suit because the first suit was scary to the public eye, which is bullcrap because if you've seen the original design, it looks stupid, not scary. The real reason why Tony would want to redesign his suit because it looked stupid, not because it would look scary. Robert Downey Jr. is not scared of the old Iron Man suit. He would redo it because he would look like an asshole. Tony Stark does not want to look like a dumb asshole because he is a man of appearance, not because he doesn't want to scare anyone. That's a completely different story. I mean, that's Batman, for crying out loud. That's not Iron Man. Get your superheroes right, Allison. And essentially, she uses a lot of descriptive words, like telling the viewer that it's painted in a nice red and yellow, where clearly we could see that it's painted red and yellow. I know this book is meant for 3-year-olds, but I think by 3 you should know what the colors red and yellow are. I mean, you should be watching Sesame Street. I know Elmo's having his issues, but, you know, at least kids can learn that Elmo is red. So, yeah. Anyway, the rest of the book is pretty much just, you know, Iron Man versus Whiplash, and I think Whiplash is chosen because of the Iron Man 2 movie, and, you know, pretty standard dialogue, and that's the story. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, the dialogue's not even worth going over. I mean, the dialogue's lame, but not lame enough to have to be not groan-worthy. You know, essentially it's like, I'm gonna drop you and electrocute you. No, please, I won't do it. But, yeah. So, that Which brings us to our next story, Spider-Man versus the Sandman. This is essentially Peter fighting the Sandman. Peter's in school, Mary Jane Watson and Harry Osborn are on a drama field trip, which, lucky for them. I'd love to go on a drama field trip. Never got to go on one of those. And he's got to put up with Flash Thompson, who most comic book fans know is the bully that picks on Peter. He would later make friends with Peter and respect him more. He actually becomes Venom in the military, for interesting little factoid. And he daydreams that, everyone will just, we love you, Spider-Man, we love you, Peter Parker. People love Spider-Man and Peter Parker, but unfortunately not in the books universe. But he turns out that he's got to fight the Sandman, and essentially that's all that happens. He fights Sandman, turns to be really hard, he puts back to the school, meets Mr. Johnson, the janitor, and defeats him Luigi's Mansion style by sucking him into the vacuum cleaner, which I have to admit is a very clever idea. I've never seen a villain defeated like that. Well, okay, maybe Ghostbusters, but that's not the Ghostbusters thing. That's different. I mean, I guess I could have made the joke of, who are you going to call when Sandman attacks? Oh, who are you going to call? Spider-Man! No, but yeah, so that's essentially the story, and it ends with everyone loving Spider-Man, but no one loves Peter Parker. Well, except for Mary Jane Watson, and I guess Harry Osborn loves him in a brotherly-like way, but, not like love, but friendly love. Again, decent storyline. I think there's one thing where it's like, but who's behind him? Spider-Man's behind him, where you can clearly see that, Spider-Man's behind him in the picture. I'm thinking that the people that wrote this didn't think this was going to be a picture book, and you have to describe everything. It's as bad as the Iron Man red and yellow thing. Also, there's one thing is that people didn't know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Everyone knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, unless the only Spider-Man media you know of is the Superior Spider-Man, where Otto Octavius is Spider-Man. Everyone knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and even if people did only know, the movies and cartoons would say otherwise. So, other than that, story's good, minor little writing gimmicks there, but still a decent story to check out. The Iron Man Surprise Attack, written by Clarissa Wong, that one's kind of just an okay story. I mean, essentially Tony has a business meeting with this guy named Victor Wong. They never explain what's it about. It's just a big, important meeting, and Pepper's like, you can't be late to this business meeting. This is important for our company. I'd like some minor details. Is he going to get a raise? I think he says in the story that it's show off brand new technology, but that's very vague. And pretty much the whole story is just him fighting Crimson Dynamo and Titanium Man. And again, just like the first Iron Man story, standard dialogue. Iron Man has a lot of quips, but none of them are worth reading out loud. He just kind of fights them and makes it in time for the meeting, and he has to deal with helmet hair, but he says, I guess I'll have to make do with the helmet hair, but other than that, it's an alright story. I think it's one of the weaker ones. I would rank it as the third worst. And the next one is Captain America Returns, which is based off the 1964 comic of the same name, written by Allison Lundstrom. Allison Lundstrom wrote a lot of these stories, by the way. And essentially, if you know the comic, it's pretty much that comic with the addition of the Hulk. Namor attacks the people because they destroyed the Atlantean society. Hulk gives a good smash. They find Captain America. They unfreeze him. By the way, the other Avengers members other than Thor, Hulk, and Iron Man are Giant Man and the Wasp. For those of you who do not know, they find Captain America. They unfreeze him. Show him around. They kick some Atlantean butt with his soldiers, and they save the day. And overall, it's good. It's good adaptation. The only change they made was adding the Hulk. And you know what? The Hulk's a great addition. I love that guy. Which brings us to our next story, Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six. Which, just like Thor or A Brothers Battle, is just an adaptation of the very first encounter with the Sinister Six, written by Thomas Palikos. It's not really warranted to go over too much because it's really good and it's worth reading for yourself. But it's essentially a newscaster summons Spider-Man to battle the Sinister Six, and he gives a beating to Kraven the Hunter and his Jaguars, Electro and his Electric Shocks, Sandman and his powerful sand, which he defeats through concrete, Vulture and his powerful green wings, Mysterio and his mystical gaseous smoke, and Dr. Octopus and his mighty mechanical arms. There is actually one really funny Mysterio line here. You always thought you were better than me, but now the world will see that Mysterio is better than Spider. Ugh! Yeah, he's so much of a wimp he doesn't get to say man, because he's not a man. He is a mysterious wimp. Well, you are. And of course he defeats the Sinister Six, but I won't reveal how he does it. You'll just have to wait, read, and see. The next one is Hawkeye and the Mighty Adventures, which basically gives the origin of Hawkeye. Grew up with a brother, joined the circus, learned archery through circus act, thought he could do much better than just be a simple circus performer, saw Iron Man, got inspired, got confused as a bank robber, got to meet the Avengers, which is the original 6 Avengers from the Captain America Returns, and gets to help them out in their first mission as a 7-person team battling against the evil Ultron and his army of mechanical droids, who are so powerful that they killed Thor and Hulk off-panel in the Age of Ultron storyline. I'm not even kidding. But they defeat Ultron and his Goonies here because this is Disney, and Disney always has a happy ending. And this is written by Nacho Castro, and it's very good. Again, other than that, I think it's worth checking out. I know Hawkeye isn't the most beloved Marvel character by hard comic book fans, but I think for newcomers it introduces him quite well, and I like the guy, alright. He gives him a good backstory, and for kids, inspire a new generation of people to really like the character, buy the toys, and worship another iconic hero. The next one is the only Hulk one, Desert Brawl. Essentially, this is the big Hulk versus Abomination, which they called The Abomination, but it's Abomination, written by Clarissa Wong. General Thunderbolt Ross sees the Abomination. He has no choice but to send in the Hulk, even though he doesn't like the Hulk. And Hulk can't find the Abomination, saying, Hulk doesn't see no one. Beauty General make mistake. But the Abomination comes in, taunting, no one can beat me. I'm the Abomination. And really, the Hulk and the Abomination fight. That's the story. Now, there is actually some pretty entertaining Hulk dialogue, but he talks way too much for the Hulk. You just say, Hulk smash! And just fight. You don't need all this dialogue. Probably the worst is, Hulk think Abomination is fool to underestimate Hulk. And essentially throws a rock. Abomination breaks it. He roars. And after he defeats Abomination, has a really funny line. Hulk just knocking to let you know he arrived. Ding dong. After the general saying, what on earth are you doing? Just dropping in. I defeated the Abomination. Give me a medal. And shockingly, everyone's happy at the Hulk. Normally they're trying to shoot him down like a wild animal, but they actually say, good job, Hulk. You did good. And that's nice for the Hulk to get some well-deserved respect. Story ends with them turning into Bruce Banner, looking like, he's shivering. And it's not a great story, but it's not a bad story. I would call it a middle ground story. final Spider-Man story is Peter Parker's Pictures, or it should be called Spider-Man vs. the Lizard, written by Allison Lundstrom. J. Jonah Jameson orders Spider-Man to get some pictures of the lizard. We need a good close-up here. He's running around like a wild animal. It's my J.K. Simmons impersonation, and after that order, Spider-Man suits up and prepares to fight the lizard, which his evil plot is breaking into Dr. Kurt Connor's lab, using his army of reptiles, making them super big to take over the world. And I have to admit, that is a cool evil plot. He even uses them as his private army to defeat Spider-Man, which makes it a more difficult fight than Kraven the Hunter or the Sandman. And they do explain that the lizard is Dr. Kurt Connor's mutation going wrong, and they do that backstory well. And after the long battle, he does return the lizard back to Kurt Connors using a magic potion, which they literally call a magical potion, even though it's a chemical solution. And turns him back to normal. Dr. Kurt Connors apologizes for his evil lizardish deeds and decides to keep the chemical solution, Spider-Man does, as just in case you break out to reptilian hives again. And J. Jonah Jameson, like the Hulk, gives Spider-Man a "Well done, Spider-Man," or "Peter Parker, these pictures are fantastic!" Again, I love how Disney treats our heroes with the respect they deserve. I mean, that is something you gotta admit. Disney treats the Marvel heroes with kindness and respect. And that's probably the 5th best story. 4th best story is actually the final story of the whole book, The Lethal Lair of the Red Skull, written by Elizabeth Shatter, which is Steve Rogers in the World War II era having to face the Red Skull because he built a Vita Ray that apparently is so powerful that it can drain Captain America's powers. It's kind of like the Krypton Ray, only Marvel. And the general says, "We can't let you go in there. We love you, man, but it's just too dangerous for you. We got this." Unfortunately, Steve Rogers doesn't want to risk any military lives and decides to sneak in and defeat the Red Skull. What follows is an explosive battle, which is worth reading for yourself, and he defeats Red Skull with only suffering a minor damage. Yes, he does unfortunately get hit with the ray, but only suffers minor damage. The effects are temporary, and even though he disobeyed his orders, and boy, is he going to have a weird conversation with the general, he at least saved all their lives, so that's something. So, overall, 5-minute story, Marvel stories is worth checking out. I mean, there are some ones that aren't that great, but a lot of them are worth checking out. The only one that I would absolutely avoid is the first Spider-Man, Kraven the Hunter. And one other thing I should point out, you see all the characters in the front, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, and Hulk, and Black Widow. Yeah, you notice how in this whole video I didn't mention Black Widow once? That's because Black Widow is not in the story, and I didn't skim over it. I looked through the entire story. Black Widow is not pictured or mentioned at all. She's on the cover, but not in the rest of the story. Why? I mean, are you trying to advertise for the Avengers movie? How about putting in a character that was in the story, like Thor? Why isn't Thor on the cover? Thor's an awesome character. Don't put a character that's not in the book at all just to advertise, you know, the Avengers movie. Because Ant-Man's not in the Avengers movie and Spider-Man isn't in the Avengers movie, even though we all want Spider-Man to be in the Avengers movie. I do. But yeah, other than, you know, a lame Spider-Man story and false Black Widow advertisement, again, on the cover, nowhere to be found in the rest of the book. It's a good story. You can find it online for $8 to $10. I bought it for $13. I think that's a little high. It's a decent buy if you got little kids that want to be introduced to the Marvel Universe. If you're an adult fan of Marvel, I would probably leave this one to the kiddies. So that's it for now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!